Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maury. I'm here with my husband, Jim. Welcome to the kitchen table. Yes, I do not have the podcast room redecorated yet, so I am getting a bunch of for that, but I am
Yes.
working on it. We are here tonight talking about artificial intelligence. And when you talk about artificial intelligence, one of the things you have to do is you have to talk about ethics. So we have a guest, Dayna. Let me say your name again. How do you pronounce it?
Guido.
Guido. Okay. The reason I pronounced it Guido the first time I saw it is I actually had a student that I taught in the seventh grade that he spelled it exactly that way, and he pronounced it
Okay.
Guido, which
Yeah.
is kind of that's American English or whatever. We pronounce things differently no matter what.
Right,
So,
right, right.
Dayna, if you'll take just a second, please introduce yourself and please tell us about not just the one, but the two books that you have out there right now.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here at your kitchen table.
Yeah. You know, we
Um,
we enjoyed the kitchen table conversation.
that's great. That's great. So, I have written a book called Creative Ways to Learn Ethics, and it is a book that has 20 chapters that have very creative lessons and curriculums on ethics for professionals, and it can be adapted to for teachers. It can be adapted. It's mainly for mental health professionals and counselors, but it's really adaptable for church groups because we can take the word ethics and we can use values or morals. So you know what I mean. And so it's very interactive trainings in there, and they're all set up for people to just pick up the book and then do those trainings and give the trainings, lead the trainings. And that
Right.
book is you can buy it on Amazon, or you could buy it at Routledge through Routledge. That's the publishing house. The second book that I published is a book called The Parental Toolbox. And my late husband Jim, another Jim, Guido, and I wrote this book. We met in the 70s working in residential care for adolescents. He was in the schools, and I was in the residential part of it. And then we continued to work together all the way until his death in 2020. We published this book in, I think, 2017, and it's to help parents, and it's to help anybody working with parents around just parenting skills. And so it really relates to also what is happening in the world with AI, because we have one of the chapters is parenting in the 21st century. So we were
Right.
kind of taking it into, well, of course, we didn't have AI when we were writing the book, but we really were talking about technology as well. And it's all about values and being, just the kind of values you want to have as a family, and what do you want to impart with your children. So that those two they really converge in in the work that I'm doing today.
Awesome. And you can get that at the same location that's available
Yeah,
on
that's it.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's available at
Awesome.
Amazon. Yeah.
One of the things that Jim and I say a lot is thank you, AI. I mean,
Yeah.
because the conversations that we're having today, we should have had 20 years ago. And so
Right.
that chapter in your book that has to do with technology, really, you're right. I mean, a lot of the things that we need to teach our kids, we just never really thought about it then, whenever social media first hit the scene. And we were putting devices in all of our kids' hands, and the screen was getting, closer and closer to the face as they were, scrolling. So a lot of that definitely has not changed. So let's talk for a second about ethics, because you and I had a conversation a few weeks ago. And one of the things, when I sent you these questions that I thought would be nice to get your perspective on, one of the things was define ethics. I mean, because ethics, has it changed? Is it different now than what it was 20 years ago?
Yeah. Well, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm in mental health, and I do a lot of other kinds of things like parenting and, and writing books and trainings and teaching. But I do it from the lens as a clinician, as a mental health provider. And then it all kind of grows from there. And as all professional counselors, mental health providers, physicians, nurses, um, uh, massage therapists, like everybody that's working on the human body or with human beings, almost all professions have a code of ethics. And those
Mhm.
codes of ethics are a kind of national thing, and each state decides how do they legislate around those codes of ethics, like do they need a license to practice and all that. So for me as a social worker, I function under the National Association of Social Work, the NASW Code of Ethics. And there is a code, there is an actual code. There's actually a book that is the Code of Ethics, and so there are these codes that we must follow if we're going to be a professional in this field. And again,
Right.
most professions have them. Our codes don't. Every now and then, every few years, every 5-10 years, there might be a couple additions to the codes. We've updated the code in I think 22, something like that, to have it. There's some technology issues that are now coming up in it, and we're paying attention to it. When I went to graduate school and got my MSW in 1983, that's when I first learned about the Code of Ethics. It hasn't changed much. It's still pretty much the same. And how it really relates at this point in time with AI, and how I'm relating it to AI, is that we really are talking about some things like the importance of human relationships, and
Right.
where the ethics where it intersects with AI is, are we going to pay attention to human relationships? That is human centered is really, really important. And I think that's going to lead into most of our discussions here.
Mhm.
We have another idea behind this is that there's the dignity of the human being, of a person, and that's really an important dignity and worth of the person, that we believe as social workers that's an important thing. If you go to the codes for counselors or marriage and family therapists, for physicians, for nurses, all those, there's something like that. There's something about that we are working with humans, and so physicians, we always hear this, do no harm, right?
Right.
That's like an ethical code for them. So that's
Right.
where we come with ethics. In personal lives, again, it's like a moral or a value. That's how they're connected, right? And
Mhm.
so they are about like standards that we agree to live by.
Right.
Yeah.
But is AI, I mean, don't you think that AI is reshaping that? And not only is AI reshaping it, but let's talk for a second about the different generations that
Mm-hmm.
are seeing this stuff differently. I mean,
Right.
we had this conversation. Our privacy and our ethics, that like I view it a certain way, my daughter or someone in high school views it totally different.
Right.
So who makes those decisions and who changes those codes of ethics to reflect the current thought process on what it is?
It's a good question. The codes of ethics, there's bodies of professionals that serve for all the different codes. So there's different people on those committees, and they get elected by the national associations that support these codes, right? And so probably the teenagers in your school and your daughter, and I don't mean to be insulting to your daughter, but she's probably not going to get on the ethics committee to write and change the ethics rules for professionals that have been around. These codes have been around for, some of them have been around for 80 years, 100 years, some maybe later professions, maybe, 40 years, something like that. But we're going to have professionals writing, those professionals in the field that they're following them. So that's where those codes of ethics come from. They don't just get changed in a whimsical manner.
Right.
There's a lot of thought that goes through them, and there is most of them have like core values, and then they go into standards that you have to follow. And so we have to, and then the law upholds these standards, and that's what if you're going to be licensed, you have to do that. So they're not going to change dramatically, but what's going to happen is we're going to have to interpret them, because they're not meant as, it's not like a law you cannot pass the red light, or you have to stop at the red light. They're getting interpreted. And so as they're getting interpreted, like a huge part of, you'll hear about professionals talking about boundaries and professional boundaries. Well, those get interpreted. So what's a professional boundary? Where's privacy start? Where does it end? We're really concerned about the privacy and HIPAA compliance, like so that you can't just talk about other people and talk about their mental health or their health situation unless they've given you a consent for a release for information to be able to pass that on to somebody else. That's not going to change.
So do you think that it's going to change to where, like, say I go into a doctor's office and I am, signing all of the things that I have to sign saying that, you're allowed to share my medical information or you're allowed to discuss my information with somebody else? Because
Right.
I worked in doctor's offices for quite some time before I got into education. Do you think there's going to be a line added to that? Or does there need to be a line added to that?
It's already being added. So in some places you're going to see the lines added. Do you approve that we are going to use AI, and they might not call it AI, but that we're going to use a different type of a digital documentation source so that this, and so like here's be an example. If we were instead of doing this podcast right now, you were my physician and we were doing a telehealth session.
Right.
And you were recording this with AI, you would have to, by HIPAA compliancy, you would have to have me sign that I'm okay with you recording this and then using AI's generated notes to put in my chart. If I don't agree to that, you cannot do that. Now, what's going to happen at some point, there's going to be some professionals that are going to say, well, then I won't take you on as a patient or a client.
Oh, right? Wow. Haven't thought about that. Yeah, it's kind of like the insurance company that won't insure you unless you agree to have the thing put in your car to, monitor your driving.
Exactly. So some of those things are happening. So is that ethical? Is there where do our rights come in? And so those are some of the questions. It's not to say you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. It's to say, let's think about these things. Let's pause a minute and think about the long-term implications of this. And so privacy is a big one of them.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into the next question I had for you is about the leadership in the ethical gray areas. I did mention my daughter, and she's 28, and so she's been working in, she graduated a while ago. She has a degree in computer science, and she's talking about starting to run for like city council, or she's really interested in the political side of it. Where do you think, like, the people that are making those ethical decisions, or that gray zone that we have right now?
Right.
What is it that they're going to need to do differently? I mean, are they going to need to start not necessarily putting things in place that can stand for 40 years? Because, this is the difference in like an AI technology versus all the other technologies of the past. We were actually just talking about this earlier tonight. The technology in the past, you can measure the changes in technology in decades. It's taken them decades to get where they're at today, versus artificial intelligence, we're already measuring the changes in just years, not decades. And so are these ethical leaders, or these leaders that are making all these laws and all these decisions, are they going to have to be more open to change quicker than in the past when it comes to writing these guidelines? What is your opinion on that?
Well, there might be more pressure on it. It's happening really fast. And one of the things is that we really, as human beings, we're getting on overload of all the changes. And so for many professions, it's hard to keep up with everything and all the changes that you're supposed to do and keep, to kind of stay modern and stay up to date. So it's a good question. Like who's going to decide that, and who's like, what do we do with it? So what I've come up with is, I call it an ethical courage decision-making model. And in most ethical models, most people that have to follow ethics, we have some decision-making models. So it's like a decision-making tree, like what do you do when, right? And so in this model, it's very similar to almost all the models out there. But the difference is that I'm saying we need, at this day and age, we need to have some ethical courage to say, let's slow down and get our whole being, our whole body regulated and our nervous system regulated, which means we can't always make snap decisions. We can't just keep changing from one thing to the next, because that's actually not how human brains and human bodies work. that we have got
Right.
to be able to learn and incorporate some things, and that's going to change learning. We have AI, we have other models doing a lot of the early learning for us. But what does
Hmm.
that do to our brains? What are we going to really, are we going to become proficient? What are we going to become proficient at?
Right. I think that we talk a lot about how it's the process that needs to be looked at now for getting from point A to point B. As an educator, how did you do this? How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah,
Being able to argue your points. It's not necessarily the product that needs to be
right,
graded, but the
right.
steps to the product is going to have to. We talk about how learning happens at the friction points,
Yes,
and AI has taken away a
yes,
lot of those friction points. And so as an educator, we're going to have to reintroduce or artificially put back in different
right.
types of friction points so that we know that learning is occurring.
I agree with that completely. And that's what I'm saying is, and that's what I use in the ethical courage decision making model, is that we've got to put back in the human being in here. That we're not
Right.
going to just go on to, and type into AI, can I do this? Is this an appropriate boundary? Is this a good treatment plan to use with somebody? Is this, is this the way I can do documentation? You can't rely on AI for those things when I'm the one that's responsible. That's another part of this. Who's responsible,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Who's
so
responsible for these decisions? Yeah.
that's right. And so what you're in the educational system, I agree completely. We need to kind of bring it back down to how do you make some critical decision making? Like how does that happen for kids? How do they learn how to go from point A to point B, and be creative? We don't want to lose. AI is helping us in creativity in some ways, but it's taking a lot away from us for us to work it out ourselves. And that's the
Honestly, I
Mhm.
think that AI is, when it comes to the creative side of it, and Jim, let me know if you agree with this. Um, Jim's sitting here going, "You guys are talking about education more than engineering." So he's like, "I don't know if I'm part of this conversation." Um, when it comes to creativity, I think that what I've seen a lot with AI is that somebody who is really creative and they're like a really great artist or they're really good at producing music or something, they might lose some of the creativity if they start turning some of that decision making over to an AI. But then those people who want to be creative and have those ideas about what something should look like, and they just can't quite get from point A to point B to produce that product, I think AI helps them
Right.
uh, do things they've never been able to
Yes.
do
Yeah.
before. So it's like a balance that you need to reach when it comes to utilizing it and why you're utilizing it. So let's move on just real quick to the education.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would love to think that K-12 could take a deep breath and really think about how we're going to be doing this and really think about how we're going to present this to students. But every single day, I talk to a student who is already utilizing these tools. I
Right.
mean, again, it's that conversation we should have had a long time ago. I mean, it's on their phones, it's in character AI, it's in chat AI, it's in, you know, Google, everything is integrated. Gemini just popped up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in everything. And so I don't know if K-12 education really has the, I
Runway.
guess, the what?
Runway.
The privilege that we don't have
They don't have the runway. I
we,
mean, at the end of the day, you can say all we want about how there's been lots and lots of people talking about how we should step back, slow down, take AI slower. Businesses are designed to be profitable, and they're going to do it's competitive, and they're going to do whatever they have to do to be. I mean, that's why some of these ethical guidelines were created in the first place, because
right.
Mm-hmm.
profit, you
Yeah.
can suffer a lot in terms of profit. You can ruin environments, you can do whole lots of things, you can cause people's deaths in coal mines. But the fact is, businesses are rewarded for profitability and they're punished for not. And they're
Mm-hmm.
going to use these cognitive services that AI offer. If it gives them a competitive advantage, they're going to use them. The
Mm-hmm.
question is, are we going to educate kids? Um, by showing them the pros and cons, the limitations, what they can
Making
and
them
can't do,
skeptical.
making them a little. I mean, our goal is to make them skeptical, but not turn it off. I mean, I have teachers
Right,
every
right,
single day that want me to turn it off. You know,
right.
can we block this? We had one tech director who told us he was blocking the internet now, and these are impractical examples
Yes,
if you want the students to be competitive.
right.
So
It's
you have to
it,
balance it.
yeah, I agree with you completely. It's interesting in the parental toolbox. We talked about this in terms of a kind of like a discipline. We don't just forbid everything. If you forbid everything as a parent, your child doesn't get to learn. And again, critical thinking skills. This is very important to live in our world. We have to be able to figure out what to do next. And we want to live creative lives. We want to live meaningful lives. And so just blocking everything is not always such a great solution. Sometimes there's moments to do that for safety reasons, right? Of course, there's
Sure.
something like we don't want to have, inappropriate images coming through in schools or any place, but so we're going to, some things are blocked. But we really want to use the tools to our benefit. And then we want to hold businesses accountable and others that are creating, different apps and different AI tools. And we want to hold people accountable and businesses accountable to say that we believe in the importance of human beings. We believe in relationships. This is human centered. And if we can kind of keep that at the forefront, that makes the difference. I think we want to engage all of our senses, like, smell and touch and hearing, and that's part of learning. The more that we can engage our senses, the more that we actually learn and the faster that we learn, right? We kind of know this. And so in a classroom, the more that we can get active, kids are active and interacting with one another, working with one another, and not always on devices.
Right.
And that we can get people outside. We know the importance of nature. There's no doubt about this. There's no doubt about the importance of nature for depression. The depression rates and the anxiety rates are going sky high right now. And we know that being out in nature is one of the ways that really helps calm us and kind of regulates our system again.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
how
if
can we
you
do that in classrooms that even just engage kids in real life rather than just through a screen?
Right. So if you were going to, I mean, the point that I was trying to make is that I'm hoping that K-12 education can hit a sweet spot to where we can adopt and adapt quick enough to where we don't have another lost generation. The kids that get out of school, that go into a workforce or go into a university, to where the workforce and the university is so much further ahead of what they were trained for in K through 12, and then they're lost. So I'm hoping that we can hit that sweet spot to where we're utilizing artificial intelligence as a tool. We're teaching them about AI literacy. We're teaching them to be skeptics and how to utilize it. But we're fast enough that we don't lose kids. That to me, that would be my goal.
Yeah, I think it's a great goal. And human beings are never going to be as fast as technology and AI. I mean, in that computer system. But what we do have is an ability for relationship and compassion and to teach, and to teach in that kind of way. That's an important component of what happens K through 12. This is important. The other thing is that the students going into college are knowing more about technology and AI than most of the professors in there. So we're
absolutely.
also having a big gap in there. I mean that's becoming right. That's becoming an issue. So how do we ensure that people are learning, or is it just AI is doing it for us? I mean, we can use the tool, but at what point let's just even use what we have had for years, GPS. At some point, do I just want to get to my destination without GPS? Do I want to turn it off and that I can enjoy the ride and get there? Or do I always have to follow those directions? Right. At some point, we have people that are not cooking anymore with any kind of creativity or learning. They're just putting on they're putting on some device and it's telling them what to do. It's making their grocery list. It's doing all these kind of things and probably ordering the groceries and the groceries are coming. Not to say that's a bad thing. I mean, for some people that don't really want to do that, okay, there's a good tool. But at what cost does this do to human beings and to relationships? Part of what happens in families and in schools is the interaction between people.
Right. For me, I mean, and we're going to get to this in just a second, which we'll go ahead and skip to that question now. It's like that litmus test.
Yeah.
For me, if I am utilizing an AI and I am having it do my, here's my monthly menu or my weekly menu, and I need to do the grocery list. I need you to go ahead and put in the order. I need you to go ahead and arrange for the deliveries. And this has saved me an hour and a half, 2 hours, for me to be able to get an AI to do this for me. What am I doing with that hour and a half to 2 hours? To me, that is the test. That's my personal test. And is AI gaining me that efficiency of time given back to me so that I can then use that time to turn it into an opportunity for me to better myself, better my conditions that I'm in, better my relationship with somebody? Or is it just buying me time so I can, not do anything that's productive to society?
Right.
Where I can take a longer bath or something.
That's right. So I think that also kind of goes into that other question you asked about with families and digital life. To me, it's a lot of this has to do with our values. So I know I'm talking about ethics and they're connected to values, but values as a family, values, individual values, family values, and even educational system values. Each school district has some values, and each school has, kind of the way that they're defined themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the things that you value? If you value speeding up, getting efficient through all these things, you don't have to do grocery shopping because you really want to exercise more, or you want to spend more time with your kids, then what are you going to do with your kids? What you're going to do with your kids is be on a device, not really talking to each other, but both playing a game in different rooms and not really, is that what you value? So where's the value? And that's, I think what you're saying, Maurie, is that like, well, what do I value? What am I going to replace it with? What am I going to do instead that's of importance to me? And so to me, that's a part of the litmus test.
Right. And I think one of the things, and we have about 3 minutes left, but I think one of the things that as an educator and a counselor, and a lot of the conversations that I've had with parents, I don't know if they have a definition of what those values are anymore.
Right.
There are a lot of families out there that haven't really thought about it. Exactly. And it's one of the things, I have the book out about how teachers have bigger fish to fry. And one of the things that we say a lot is that people in our area and people that are just their day-to-day lives, they're so overwhelmed and so, up to their ears, I'll put it that way, in alligators, that they don't have time to step back to really evaluate what it is that's important to them, or what it is that they want their family values to be. So, that might be a conversation that doesn't have anything to do with AI, but I'm hoping that because of artificial intelligence that, again, we're having these conversations that we've really been avoiding. And I think one of the reasons we avoid this is because we don't want to take the opportunity to look in the mirror. We don't want to see how we're becoming as a human race.
I think so. But I think I'm going to go to Jim's point that I think that we've got businesses and organizations and other people who are after the money and fame and kind of like this, the pursuit of what they would call happiness is having lots of money, and that's the value. And so if we can just we can't slow AI down. We don't have to stop it completely in our lives or in the schools or with our families, but we can take time to be together. And that's a part of what happens with family values. What's the value in your family? And to me, one of the families is that I want to spend real time with people. I want to have conversations. I want to do some things. I want to do things for myself. I want to engage all my senses and be in nature. I can't do that if I'm always on a screen. Mm-hmm. I can use screens to help me. I'm writing another book. It's helpful. I wouldn't be able to do that I would be able to. It would be a lot harder.
A lot harder, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. lots of great things about it. There's lots of great tools that can be efficient. But what are we going to do? How are we going to teach our children? And where's that relationship between us? AI cannot replace the relationship. It's trying to have dates with people, and it's trying to, tell people what to do for their mental health or physical health, and teach them different things. But the reality is, nothing can really replace mom and dad. Nothing can replace the relationship you could have with your third grade teacher. It just can't do it. A computer, I'm saying, nothing like that.
What I'm hoping for, as we wrap up, I'm hoping for balance. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is because we have situations to where, like, we're in rural America. And so we don't have counseling services that are readily available. We don't have medical services that are readily available.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, like we have an elderly parent that lives on her own, and she has no one. I mean, we hire somebody to come in and see her 4 times a week. We go see her once a week, and so she's alone. And so I see a value with really strict guidelines and really strict guardrails of allowing an AI-like companion to help fill the space.
Yes.
But it definitely has to have those guardrails and those guidelines in place. So
that's exactly right, because whoever's behind it, creating it, they could create a way in which that they take complete advantage of that elderly person.
Right. And so they're right back. We just looped right back around to ethics.
But that's right. But it's a tool, and it can be used, and it's great. It can really help people. It can get telehealth. It can get lots of things. It's great in some ways. And I go back to the human-centered approach. It's important. Right. We are still human beings on this planet. We are here. And we are relating to one another, and that's very important. So if we know what our values are, and we know, we can kind of like live up to them. And sometimes that takes courage. I call it ethical courage because of professional stuff, but it takes courage to stand up and say, I'm not going to engage in this right now because it is really taking me away. Even though it seems efficient, it's taking me away from the things that I value.
Right. Dayna, we appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much. And absolutely, this books that you're doing, I think they're great. They're definitely needed. I appreciate the conversation.
Yep.
My name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a marvelous rest of the week.
Yep. Thank you.